Hello friends, welcome back to the session. So in this session, we will discuss about the domain properties. While after creating the table, in that table, we are going to maintain some set of entries. I hope you observed. So the entries which we are supposed to maintain in a table, now for example, if I go to the table, one of the table which I have created, ZZ01 underscore customer, after creating the table, we are going to maintain. We in the sense, of course, end user is going to maintain the data. So data will be maintained through the different way. He can maintain the data through program also. He can maintain the data by creating a custom SAP screen. He can maintain the data by using the table maintenance generator, or maybe he can maintain the data directly through SCE11 also. So if I want to maintain the entries, of course, I will go with utilities, table content, and the create entries, right? So whenever creating the table entries, now here I do have the field called name, the city, the street. Now these information, suppose for example, I'm creating a new entry, something like 2000, the customer name, something like, I will go with this city, I will go with postal code, somewhat street, and the country I'm taking India. I hope you are observing this, especially name, city, street, and the country, the characters I'm talking about. The information which I have passed, these are in the combination of uppercase and the lowercase. The first character under the name, the first character is in uppercase and rest of the characters in a lowercase. Second, in the city, the first character is in upper and the rest of the characters in a lowercase. Similarly with the street, but by default country, the information which I have passed, that is in an uppercase only. But as soon as if I click on save option, the data which you have entered, of course, that is getting saved in a database. But the information which you have stored in the combination of upper and the lower case, by default, it is getting converted into uppercase. What if I don't want to convert any characters? I don't want any conversion. The information which I have passed in a upper, it should be remains in uppercase. The information which I'm passing in a lower case, it should be remains in lower. I don't want any conversion. It should be remains with the original, the style which I'm passing. This is one of the scenarios. So again, suppose the information, like for example, I do have similar another table called bank one. Now in that again, we are going to maintain some account number, some more transaction date, and specifically this amount field. In the bank account which you are holding, sometimes your balance will go in minus also. So, and of course in the plus sign also. Now how we will show like your data is in minus sign or in the negative balance, we can say suppose negative balance. You do have the minimum balance and the negative balance if you do have the higher side also. Now how we will get to know that my balance is in the negative? So you'll get some sign called minus one. So if you don't have that minus signs means your data is in higher side or the positive sign as well. It means I want to maintain the data in the combination of minus sign and the plus sign in the sign information. How is it going to be possible? Again, so there are few more also. For all this, especially the character which I don't want to convert in upper, by default all the characters are converting in upper only. Upper is again in the remains in upper. Even lower is also getting converted into upper. I don't want to convert. I don't want that conversion. Or suppose the amount which I'm storing, specifically the numbers, I want to store in the combination of plus and minus sign. So if there is no any symbol means of course it's a plus sign only. But if we want to specifically highlight the minus sign, then we need to work with the concept called domain properties. While discussing with the database table, we discussed with the different components like delivery class, data browser slash table view maintenance. We discussed about the fields. Under the fields, we do have domain, data element, key field. Now, domain is nothing but what? The field which you are creating for that field, maintaining the data type and the length is nothing but the domain. So now you can like even during the database discussion also we have already covered everything. Now why we are maintaining this data type and the length in the format of domain? So there are some advantage why we are creating the domain. So first thing is reusability. Creating the domain and the data element. The main purpose is reusability. The same domain and the data element can be reused in multiple table fields. And the second purpose to create the domain to maintain the properties. So two of them we have already discussed. There are total 5 domain properties we can set for each field. So among them is the first one is a sign. So under the domain, if you are maintaining this sign option, it will be used to maintain the data. Actually, this properties, the domain property which I'm maintaining, that is going to be applicable for the data which you are storing under the field. It will be used to maintain the data, or I can say store. Either you can maintain or you can store the data in the combination of plus sign and minus sign. Now, for example, now as I discussed, the amount sometimes in your college days, in a school days, normally nowadays also, if you do have the multiple account, one of them is a salary account, one of them is a personal account, you can have the third account also. But regularly, if you are using two account, then maybe you are going to neglect the third account. Sometimes it will go if you are not maintaining the like minimal balance. If you go with the corporate banking, they're having some scenario like you need to maintain the minimum balance. If you're not maintaining, that will get deducted some amount, and sometimes it will go in a negative also. Now, how you'll get to know that your amount in a negative? So there will be something like either 1200 minus something like your information is something like 1200. Or suppose if I maintain some 15,000. If you are not maintaining anything, it will be considered as plus sign. But if you want to maintain the information in this format, adding with plus or minus, if you are not adding any sign, then it will be remain considered as plus sign only. But if it is specifically, if you want to show that amount in a negative balance, then it's a part of minus signs. So in that situation, you need to select that checkbox. There is a checkbox provided under the domain. So you in this situation, you must create the domain for the field. Under the domain, user must select sign checkbox. There is a checkbox called sign. It is a checkbox. Once you select this checkbox, then you will be able to store the data in plus or minus sign. And this is specially for the field with the data type integer. It will be specially for, it will applicable integer field. See, if you are storing the data in character format, character is a universal. It will accept any. The plus minus is a part of special characters. The normal character data type will accept all. Your normal symbol also he will accept. He will accept the number also. It will not applicable to the field with the character data type. It is specifically applicable to the field with the data type as a integer. Now plus minus is a special characters. Now in the integer field, if I want to store the special character, then you need to work with the sign, the domain properties. Now, as I discussed in the amount field, I want to store the data in the combination of plus sign and the negative sign. So go to the data element. Under the data element, you need to create the domain. Can you see your data, how it is looking like? Minus 2.147 so and so to plus 147. The combination which you are seeing minus and plus, right? As I told you that we never maintain the directly the data through the S11. You don't have the access for S11 in the database production server. In that case, you need to use a TMG, nothing but table maintenance generator, or throw any program or throw any application screen. You are processing the data. So while processing the data through that way, then the data should be stored in, if you want to store the data in the combination of plus and minus, then you need to work with the sign. And that domain properties will be available only when if you're creating the domain. So here in this case, what you did, you have directly passed the data type. It will not work. Now how it going to be work? You must create the domain. So I'm creating the domain something like Z01. You can create with any name. It can be same name also in the way like in the name you have created the data element. Data element domain can be created with the same name. There is no any complexity. But if you want, you can, if you want to differentiate, you can create the different name also. That is also fine. Now I'm going to create this domain. Double click on this. Create object is the domain so and so does not exist. Do you want to create? Yes. So I'm providing something like transaction amount. Can you see data type? Integer. And it will take automatic length as 10 character. Can you see? And under this number of character, you do have decimal places, then output characteristics, output length, conversion routine, and then sign. Can you see this sign checkbox? Under that, you do have the lowercase. Okay, that is disable, but sign checkbox is enable. It means now you can store the data in the combination of minus sign and the plus sign. Just save in local object and activate. Go back. Every object must be activated. Then this is also inactive. Just activate this one. Now, whatever the data which you are storing in this table, that can be stored in the combination of plus and minus. Suppose I want to create the new one. You can go with this 1003. Then it's a part of debit, I can say, minus. If you're not storing anything, it will be considered as plus sign. Negative, purposefully I want to show it as a negative sign, then it's a part of signing option. Now click on save. See, it will be stored in this format. And again, this debit I have passed, this character information I have passed in the upper and the lowercase combination. But by default, it has been converted into uppercase. Now, so this is how you can store the data in the plus and minus. So if you are not storing anything, that it will be the plus. If you are storing something, minus. But it is not, if you want to work it properly, I want to store plus also, I want to store minus also, and that should be the first position. If you want to get it work properly, in that situation, you need to process the data through any screen or any program. Directly with the S11, it will not work properly. But if you go with the any screen, if you created any model pool screen or through TMG, which I discussed, or through program, then it will work properly. Okay. Next. Now by default, all the characters in SAP it is converting into uppercase. Now what if I don't want to convert? Then you need to work with lowercase checkbox. By default, all the character in SAP will be converted into uppercase. If you don't want to conversion, then select lowercase checkbox. This is your checkbox. Now, if I select this checkbox, it doesn't mean that even capital also will be converted to lower. No, the combination which you have provided, upper will be remains in upper, lower will be remains in lower. The currently what it's happening, upper of course, however it is in upper case only, but even lower was also converting into upper. That will be restricted. Lower will be remains in lower, upper will also be remains in upper. Now, if all the properties, if you want to get it applied to any field, in that situation, you must have the domain. So directly specifying the data type and the length, it will not work for you. Now, if I go to this table, now for this name, I don't want this conversion. Go with this data element, See, here you have applied the data type and the length. Under the domain, you have applied the data type and the length directly. It will not work. So what you need to do, you need to create the domain. Okay. Now double click on this, create object, yes. This is something like customer name. See, currently this sign and the lower checks both is enabled. Both are enabled. As I told you that sign is specifically, particularly only during the integer case. But if you are storing the data type as a character, character is a universal. It will work for all. Now what I'm trying to say, now one of them checkbox will be disabled. One of the checkbox will be disabled based on the data type which you're assigning. In my previous example, I have assigned that integer. In that situation, lowercase was disabled, only sign was enabled. Now, if I select the character, sign will get disabled, only lowercase check will enable. So here I'm providing the length and enter. See, sign was get disabled. Sign is only during the plus and minus sign. However, in the character case, it is a universal, it will accept all. It is specifically only during the integer case. So I'm selecting the lowercase checkbox. Go back, activate the data element. There is a warning, just go back. Similarly, I don't want this city, street. Both should be in uppercase. Again, you need to create the domain. Double click on this, create object, yes. City, character, 20, lowercase. Save in local object and activate. Go back, activate the data element. Again, go back. Now, similarly, I'm going to do it for the street. Double click on this, create object, yes. I'm taking it as street, character 35, lowercase checkbox. Save in local object and activate. Go back and activate. So make sure that if the changes you want to get it applied to the field or table anywhere, any object, make sure that it is active. Okay, so I have created the domain for all these three fields and I have selected the lowercase checkbox. Now this will be applicable to the existing data also and the new data also. Now if I go with the utilities, table content, create entries. So I will go with 1000, city, postal code, street, country. Now if you look at this name, city and the street, I have selected the lowercase checkbox under the domain. So now the data will not be get converted into uppercase. The upper will be remains in upper, lower will be remains in lower. See, that is a use of the lowercase. Now if I apply the same property to the existing also, suppose I want to change the data of this first, go with the change option. Now I can pass something like this. Save. See, this is how you can do the changes in existing also now. Now again under the domain properties, we do have the third one as fixed values. Now, while creating the table, under delivery and maintenance, you do have delivery class. And if I place the cursor on this delivery class and if I apply F4, there is a concept called F4 and the F1 functionality in SAP. Whenever you apply the F4 functionality on that particular field, then it's going to show you the list of possible values. List of means what kind of values provided by the SAP or maybe maintained by yourself also. That is a part of possibility. What you can there is a concept called hint, but here not a hint, but it will show you the proper value. What you can pass in this area. That list, possible list of values, if you go to the RTO registration, if you purchase a new two-wheeler or the four-wheeler. In that situation, suppose you need a choice number, then what they can, if you do have a specific choice number, you can provide it. Otherwise, you want to, like, you can ask, like, show me the list, I will check one of them. So that possible, what are the availability of values are there, that chart list which you're supposed to get, same it's going to show you in the pop-up, which is exist in the database in what possible values has provided by the SAP. Those value you will get in a pop-up. Like if I do the F4, you will get that list of possible values in a pop-up. Now so you're saying that this is as per the SAP. Now you can ask me how SAP has did this one. Now what if I want to create to my any of the field, that you can maintain by using the fixed value. So with the help of fixed value, user can maintain a specific value. It will pop up a list of values, and it will work based on F4 functionality. So whenever user apply F4, you will get the list of possible values in a pop-up. Now what values are getting populated in a pop-up? It will populate only those values which you have maintained under the fixed values. It will populate only those values which has been maintained under the fixed values. Now you can ask me, what if I want to do in one of my field? Then what we can do is we will create one extra field called gender. Now if I go with this table, I don't have any field called gender, so I want to create a new field. I will go with the gender, z01 underscore gender, just save. Double click on this, create object, yes. So here I'm mentioning gender. Now if you want to maintain any domain properties, you must create the domain. Now under field label, I'm maintaining the field label, something like this. Now I'm going back to the data type. Under domain, if I double click on this, create object, yes. So here also I'm providing the gender, somewhat character 6. Can you see this value range? So by default, the definition tab is selected. Go with the value range. Can you see the fixed values? Now here also, whenever I do F4 on that gender field, I should also get the list of possible values. Now in the pop-up, we'll get only those list of values which you have maintained under the fixed values. Okay, so before that, I will show you. Currently, are we getting any values in a pop-up? Before I maintain the values in this, I will show you. Currently, are we getting any values in the pop-up? Suppose if I go with the utilities, table content, create entries. If I do F4 on this gender, is something happening? No, right? In bracket, in bottom, you are getting the message, no input help is available. Means you have not defined the F4 functionality. Now, how it going to be maintained? If you maintain anything under the value range and the fixed value, then only you'll get the list of possible values in a pop-up. Now I want to get it as male, F female. A application data, C customizing, one side shortcut, another side that's description. Similarly, save, activate. Now whenever you are creating a new entries in a table, now see, are you finding that square bracket next to that gender? That square bracket comes to picture only when if you do have any fixed values or F4 function has been defined. Now if I do F4, you'll get the list of possible values in a pop-up. Okay. If I double click on this, it will consider the left hand side, whatever the fixed value you are maintaining, only that one you will get it. F, M, O, U, which you have maintained. The meaning of M is something like description called male. The meaning of F is something like female, likewise. Now similarly, I do have another table called the bank account. In that also we do have the concept called transaction type. The user is saying, I want to get the pop-up where it going to should populate the credit and debit. Now you need to create the domain, create object, yes. I can say transaction type, character 6. So at the same time, you can work with any 5 domain properties. It doesn't mean that for each domain you can maintain one of them property. No, you can maintain any. See, I'm taking the lowercase also under value range. I'm maintaining. See, this time I don't want it as a C, credit, D, debit. No, directly I want credit and debit. And suppose in the previous step, if I am not considering this lowercase checkbox, if I would have not been selected this lowercase checkbox, then this also would have been converted into uppercase. Now it is remains in upper and lower because of that lower checkbox which I have selected. Local object and activate. So this is the two different way which you can achieve. Now if I go back, utilities, table content, create entries. Now apply F4 on this. See, directly credit and debit you are getting. And here in this example, F female, M male means both the way you can do it with the short form also, with the long form also. That is a part of domain property. Sorry, fixed values. See, whenever I do F4, you are getting the list of possible values, and in that pop-up, you are getting only those values which are maintaining under the fixed values. Now, what if, now for example, I do have one of the table in the background. In that table, I have specified all the transaction type. In the background, I do have one of the table. In that table, all my properties has been like set of values has been maintained already. Now, whenever I do F4, I should get the pop-up, but in that pop-up, I want the values from one of the table. Getting my point? Now, currently under fixed value, whatever the values you are maintained, you are getting only those value in a pop-up. Now, what if I want to get the values in a pop-up, the values which has been maintained in one of the table? Means you want to refer to the table. In the whenever do F4, I should get the values in a pop-up by referring to one of the database table or one of the existing database table. In that table, whatever the values has been maintained, those values should be comes in a pop-up. In that situation, you need to work with the next domain property called value table. Under value table, whatever the table you are specifying, it will get list of possible values. In a pop-up from a database table which user has specified or which you have specified. But there is a prerequisite. By simply specifying any of the table, you will get the list of values in a pop-up from that table. No, there is a prerequisite. What? Now, under which domain you have specified the value table. Now, in that value table, now suppose you are specifying to one of like gender, or I can say transaction type. Now, in that transaction type, under the value table, the domain which you have created for the transaction type, under the domain, you have referred one of the value table. That value table is ABC. And for that ABC, what was your domain for the transaction type? That is something like ZZ01 underscore trans underscore type. Now, under this transaction type, this is your domain. Now, under this domain, you have referred the one of the value table. This is a value table. Now, does it mean whenever I do F4 on that transaction type field, you will get all the data from this value table? But there is a prerequisite. Yes, you will get it, but there is a prerequisite. What prerequisite? Now, in this table, whatever the set of fields we do have, among those fields, one of the fields should have this domain. Then only you'll get the values. Now, whatever the fields you do have in that value table, among those fields, for one of the field, you should have that domain registered for one of the field. Then only you'll get the data, otherwise no. Okay. So the prerequisite is domain should be registered for one of the value table field. I'm not saying only key, one of the value table field. Then only you'll get it, otherwise no. Now you can ask me where I can find that value table options. Go to the domain. Can you see value range? So here it's a fixed value, and at the bottom you can find the value table. Now whatever the value table you are referring, now whenever you do the F4 on the gender field, in the pop-up, it will get all the values from the table which you are referring. But only when in that table, one of the domain should be there. What is the domain? ZZ01 underscore gender. Now this domain should be registered or should be available in one of the table fields. Then only you'll get to it, otherwise no. And this is what we can call it as a validation at the domain level. You know, like in our previous video, we have discussed about the check table under the foreign key relationship. You know, check table and the value table are something like a cousins. Check table. In sometimes in the interview, they will ask you what is the difference between check table and the value table. Both will be used for the validation only. Both are the part of validation. So the validation is, it will validate the data at field level. It means whatever the two key fields which you have connected, and during the foreign key relationship, the domain and the data element should be the same. It means the domain is exist in the both the table key fields. But when you are going to do the validation, he will check the data. Like if I enter the 1001, he will check in the first table, does 1001 is available or not. That is a part of validation at the field level. He will compare the data of two table key field. But here, it will validate the data at a domain level. It means what? Under the value table, whatever the table you are referring. Now in that table, you should have the domain register for one of the field against which domain you are maintaining the value table. That is what we can call as a value table. Like we have considered the example. Now for this domain, I'm referring one of the value table called ABC. Let's assume. Now in this table, you do have more, maybe one or more than one fields. Now among those fields, at least for the field, you should have this domain. Then only you'll get the values, otherwise no. That we can call as a domain level validation. And the second one is what? So here, foreign key relationship is not automatic. So whenever we create the table, does foreign key relationship automatically generated? No. We must provide check table name. Then only the foreign key relationship will be generated. But here, foreign key is automatic. So under the value table, whatever the table you are providing or passing, now in that table, one of the domain is match, the validation is automatically going to take place. Why we are generating the foreign key relationship? For the validation. So here, the validation is going to be take place automatically whenever the domain has matched. He never compare with the data, instead he will match the domain. So that is what we can call it as a validation at the domain level, and here it's going to be generated that validation automatically. Even though if you don't want, it will generate automatically for you. The next comes with the conversion routine. One of the domain properties called conversion. The last one. You do have total 5. Sign, lowercase, fixed value, value table, and the conversion routine. So it will be used for, it will convert the data from SAP internal format into external and vice versa. And vice versa. Now, for example, if I go with one of the table, so of course, all these options again you can find under the domain only. Now, for example, if you want to see the conversion under the definition, here you can start the conversion routine. Now, currently there is no any conversion routine available for one of my domain. But if I will take you one of the reference to the standard table. So there is one of the standard table provided by the SAP called LFA1, that is a part of vendor master data, and one of the table called KNA1, that is a part of customer master data. I will show you one of the reference of the value table also. Now, if I click on execute, now there is a selection screen where user going to pass the input and to filter the data and the field called LAN1. Now, if I do F4 on this LAN1 field, I'm getting the list of possible values, country and the name. Now you can ask me why, how it is getting. Does it mean they might have maintained the fixed values? Now let's check it. Now if I go with this LAN1 GP, this is a domain under the value range. Does fixed value has been maintained? No, right? Then why that value, now how that value is coming in pop-up? Because of this value table. Now in this value table, you do have that field against which this domain is getting matched. After matching, it is getting all the data for you. Now if I go with this, see, in this data element, you do have the domain which is getting matched. And in this table, all the countries has been registered. In this table, all the countries has been registered, and whatever the country has been registered or the stored, those country only we are getting in a pop-up. This is how the value table will work, but I'm talking about the conversion routine. Now here you can see, if I click on execute, and here I'm passing the customer as 1010. This is my external format. Internal external is nothing but what? From externally, I'm running this table. In that, I'm passing the input as 1010. And when I click on execute, I'm getting the results. This is a customer number field. I'm getting this result. This is a customer number field. Now, can you see the data? This is a customer number. Now, this row data I have populated in a column format. This is my customer number. How it is looking like? Leading 0. Now, if I go with this, internally now externally, I'm just providing the input as 1010. And how it is getting the data for you? There are leading 0, but how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 leading 0. So it is getting with result 6 leading 0 with 1010. You can ask me what's wrong in that? See, as a human being, these both value are same for me. There is no any meaning for the leading 0, but after the like the trailing leading 0, there is a meaning for that. So 0 is providing before the number, no meaning, but the same 0 if he is providing behind the trailing 0, that is a meaning. This stands for 1 only and this stands for 10. That makes a difference for me as a human being. But it is so there is no any difference for me. Both are same only. But this makes a difference for the system. You know, the systems always are working on a binary language. One extra zero or one extra one make a lot of difference. How the binary language will work? This will always in the combination of zeros and ones. One extra zero or one extra one make a lot of difference. In that situation, how can you say that this is the same for the system? No, there is a lot of difference for the system. Then how it is working internally? So this is my somewhat external format, and somewhat data is stored internally with this format. If the extra 0 and extra 1 makes a lot of difference, then how system is comparing your number with leading 0 number? So externally you have just passed as a 1010, but internally the data has been stored in the format of leading 0 with 1010. Then how these two are getting compared and getting the result? Basically it should not get compared. You should not get the result because system is working on a binary language. One extra 0, one extra make a lot of difference. Then how it is working? That is because of your conversion routine. That is the job of conversion routine, which will convert your data from external format to internal and vice versa. It means your simple number is before compare. Now you have passed the input as 1010. Before it get compared with the internal data, he will convert your data into leading zero. Before compare, he will convert your data into leading zero by conversion routine, then it will get compared. Your data will be converted into internal format before compare, and that conversion will be done by using the conversion routine. Now, how it is going to be converted? So SAP has provided two function model. One with conversion, he will always provide the two function model. Conversion exit alpha input. See, always there will be two function model, but it never be same. The conversion routines are different depends upon the fields. For the fields, the conversion which you are doing. It doesn't mean that SAP has provided the conversion for all the fields. No, only dedicated. And conversion exits function models are again not same. Those are different again depends upon, or it is different from field to field. Now currently the example which I'm discussing, for that field the function models are these two. One with the conversion exit alpha input, another with conversion exit alpha output. So what these are going to do? The first one will convert the data from external to internal. Internal format is leading 0 with 1010. External format is plain 1010. So before it get compared, it will converted by this function model from simple 1000 to leading 0 with 1000. And the second will convert the data from internal to external. So internally how it is going to be stored? But externally while coming, it will commit as something like this. Now if you want to see, so for this field, I'm going to do the conversion. Double click on customer number. So this is my domain. Double click on this. So this is a conversion routine. It doesn't mean that for all the field, the conversion routines are available, only required. Now double click on this alpha, you will get the pop-up. There are two function model. Conversion exit alpha input, which will convert your data from external to internal format. Conversion exit alpha output, which will convert your data from internal to external. Now if you want to see this one, I'm just copying this function model. So there is a different concept, like different session or the video for the function model, which you can refer. Function models are in general, if in short, if you want to know about the function models are something like a object which contains some piece of code or a group of code or the group of statement which will behave or which will perform the operation based on your given input. The input which you are providing, based on that the action, the task will be performed and it will return the results. Okay. So if I open the another session, go to SC37. If you want to run the function model, go to SC37. So this is a function model, conversion exit alpha input, which will convert your data from simple value to leading zero. If I click on execute, say I'm passing simple value 1000. I'm passing the simple value as 1000. But if I click on execute, it will convert the data from simple value to leading zero with 1010. Now you can ask me, here I'm getting these many leading zeros ending with 1010. But here in the table level, I'm getting only few. Now if you want to see table level. And the second function model is output. I will show you that too. One thousand ten. Can you count? There are total 6 leading zero ending with 1010. Now, for example, if I'm passing simple 10, 2 digit, and if I click on execute, can you count how many leading zeros are there? Here you can find 8 leading zero. It means every time leading zero now are not fixed. Now if I pass two digit number, for example, if I pass two digit 10, then there are 8 leading zero. How? So total count should be 10, including your input. Total count should be 10 character. It means if you're passing four digit number, then the remaining six are the leading zero. If you're passing two digit as a number, then remaining eight character will be the leading zero. So total count will be the 10. Why? Because what is the length of this field? See, of course, for the field, you have defined the domain. Under the domain, you must be defined the data element, sorry, data type and the length. What is the length? 10 character. So based on your input, it will add the leading zero. Suppose if you pass the 9 digit as an input, it will take one leading zero. And if you pass 10 digit as an input, it will be remainder 10 digit, there will be no leading zero. So this is how it will work. But here we are running the function model plain. There is no any restriction. So that's the reason it's showing you these many leading zero. But if you are working with any program or specifically that field, there is a total count, returning parameter total count is 10 character. Accordingly, it will take a leading zero. So here there is no any restriction. We are running plain. So that's the reason. Now I will show you the second one. This is with the input. I will show you the output as well, which will convert from internal to external. So internal is something like leading zero with 1010, and if I click on execute, it will be become simple plain. So wherever they required, SAP has provided the conversion routine. Under every conversion routine, you do have the two function model, which will convert your data from internal SAP internal format to external, external to internal, vice versa. That's it. Thank you for the day and thank you for the session.